supported the channel ever since we got demonetized last month. We appreciate everyone who's donated on Patreon or PayPal. Also, everyone who's ordered a t-shirt from our store. All of it helps. We didn't know if our new format would resonate with our viewers, but it was worth a shot since the alternative was just waiting around to get terminated. But obviously we're very happy and encouraged that the vast majority of you guys have welcomed the new direction. Right now we're just taking it one day at a time and focusing on providing quality content, and we're hopeful that if we continue to do that, eventually we can get remonetized or get enough crowdfunding support to do this full time. We're a long ways away from that, but definitely off to a great start. No reason to quit now. So without further delay, let's begin. First question is from Alexander. I haven't seen any party actively try and nullify the results of a lawful election like the Democrats are doing with Trump. It reminds me of when the Democrats did the same with Lincoln because they didn't want slavery to end. Why do you think this is? Also, love the channel and keep up the great work. Alright, thank you, Alex. So I think there's two main reasons. One is just the shock and emotional suffering that came with losing to Trump. Very few on the left ever viewed him as a legitimate candidate. They didn't think he had the requisite general intelligence to be a world leader or the specific knowledge of politics and governing that they think is essential for any US president to have. And adding to that, the polling was always heavily in their favor the entire way. If I'm recalling correctly, I think among the major forecasters, Hillary's victory odds were ranging from 70 to 99% on the day of the election. And related to this, I actually saw something really interesting last week. I was watching Charlie Kirk's discussion with Mark Cuban at this high school leadership summit. The video was published on Turning Point USA's YouTube channel last week, and I highly recommend you guys check it out. At one point, Mark starts talking about one of the Hillary campaign's critical advertising mistakes that may have swung the election, or at least contributed in a significant way. I'll just show you the clip instead of trying to paraphrase him, and this will be the only clip that I show for this Q&A video.
You want to hear a story about that and talk about a real Hillary screw up that you guys will probably love. And I got this from talking not to Brad Parscale, but to one of the other organizations that helped President Trump with his marketing. And I think this really is what turned the election more than what was spent or how they did Facebook or how Brad did Facebook or other things, even though I think Brad's smart and I've actually used him for different projects. And so the Hillary Clinton campaign completely bought out YouTube. Every single ad on YouTube, completely bought for $2.4 million. They decided they were so far ahead a couple days before, they just let it go. They didn't want to spend the 2.4. Brad came in, bought it for 1.8. And literally, if you talk to them about the numbers and the click-throughs and from the states they got those click-throughs, they feel that in those 3 states that made the difference for 77,000, the firewall states, that those came from that one decision on YouTube on that final day. So sometimes it's smart, sometimes it's happenstance, sometimes it's just stupidity. But to their credit, they took advantage of it.
I'd rather be lucky than good.
Always.
Always be rather lucky than good.
So there you go. I think the Democrats made a lot of campaign mistakes just like this one that were born out of arrogance, expecting to win, not taking the Trump campaign seriously, and all of that contributed to their feeling that this election was somehow stolen from them. But obviously this is not a legitimate excuse. This is just being a sore loser. The only quote-unquote legitimate rationale for arguing that the election was actually stolen from them is the Russian interference angle that they've been pushing. So the intelligence community is in unanimous agreement that Russia did at least 2 things to try and influence the election. One is the hacking of the DNC servers, the Podesta emails, and giving them to WikiLeaks to release at key time points leading up to the election. And the other one is the social media campaign, which was buying up Facebook ads that told lies about Hillary and posting all of these memes on Twitter, all intended to make voters distrust Hillary, I guess more than they already did. I don't doubt our intelligence community when they say that Russia took these 2 actions. It's very easy for me to appreciate why Russia would favor Trump as a president, just based on Putin's long adversarial history with Hillary and Trump's general open attitude towards finding some shared interests with Russia. However, I don't believe that this was actually anything that turned the election. Granted, there were only about 77,000 votes across Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan that ultimately decided the election, but I think that the Hillary campaign's many mistakes, just like the one Mark Cuban mentioned, absolutely played a far more decisive role than anything Russia or other countries tried to do to influence the election. So kind of a long answer to your question, Alexander, but you're right, we have not seen such an extended effort by one party to cast doubt on the election results in a very long time indeed. And I think these are 2 of the main reasons why they just won't let it go. Okay, Amit asks, What are your more trustworthy news sources on both sides of the political spectrum, and why? Which right-leaning ones do you find to be most untrustworthy? All right, good question. Okay, so the short answer is none. We don't implicitly trust any news source. The way the news actually works today, the old school investigative journalism and reporting is pretty much dead. So what we have instead are a handful of global news agencies such as the Associated Press and Reuters. The Associated Press is a nonprofit agency owned by TV stations and magazines and newspapers all across the country, and it functions basically like a voluntary union that aggregates press releases from all over the place. So every corporation, every politician, every university, every government agency, all of them have full-time press agents that will put out a press release anytime they want news coverage. And then the major news networks and the publishers basically receive these from AP and Reuters as a subscription service that they pay for. So the originating reports are supposed to be unbiased, so they're very bare bones, no opinion, and then the networks and publishers get these, and then they assign staffers to collect more information, conduct interviews, get comments, and then all of that gets compiled into the published articles and commentary that we see on the quote-unquote news. So what we do for a given report or topic of interest is we'll try to review as much as we can from different sources that are writing about it and commenting on it on network news. We also look for the original press releases, which is basically like the raw data file, and then we synthesize all of it the best we can and present it to you in a condensed format on this channel. And when we're giving an opinion on something, we try to make sure to indicate that if it's not already obvious. So to answer your question, Amit, we don't trust any news source because we understand that most of what is put out every day is actually commentary. Most frequently, we probably read the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and then the Daily Wire and the Washington Examiner to get a conservative take on the topics of the day. As far as the least trustworthy source on the right, this is probably going to upset some of our viewers, but we want to be honest with you guys. I think I have to say InfoWars because they dabble a lot in unsubstantiated conspiracy and they spend way too much time thinking about how to promote and sell those supplements instead of actually researching the topics that they discuss. It's a lot of commentary and marketing and not enough fact-finding for me. So I hope that answers your question on it. Okay, next question is from Taryn. Do you think the next president after Trump will dismantle all of the changes he has set forth? Not all of them, Taryn, because practically speaking, that would be really difficult and also really disruptive. Some policy decisions can be relatively quick and easy to change, especially those that were done by executive order. So, for example, the travel ban, the building and or completion of the wall, depending on where it's at when the next president comes in. Also the Paris Climate Accord, and all these other international agreements that we sign basically for show, but that lack any teeth or enforcement mechanism. I think all of these types of things can be readily reversed in a new administration, and I think they definitely will be if it's a Democrat. But things like the tax code, the Healthcare Act, long-term trade deals and treaties, these are things that actually directly affect citizens, businesses, entire industries in a very tangible way. And so these are way more complicated. Typically, you don't see big seesaw type of changes to these legislative policies whenever there's a change in party leadership. What you generally see is selected repeals and modifications to existing bills, but nothing too dramatic. So for example, if the next president is a Democrat, you might see an increase in the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%, but not all the way back up to 35% like it was before the Trump tax cuts. But definitely, Taryn, look for a reversal to a lot of Trump's executive orders if the next president is a Democrat, just like Trump was able to reverse a lot of Obama's executive orders. All right, William asks, do you think that all of the censorship coming from the big tech companies, specifically with the banning of high-profile conservative voices like Alex Jones and Gavin McInnes, will affect the midterm elections? If so, do you think that this censorship was a deliberate move to influence the election? So sorry to say, William, but based on what I've seen and heard so far in tracking the midterm races, it doesn't look like there will be a significant impact. Off the top of my head, I can't recall any midterm candidates who are actively campaigning on fighting censorship or at least raising some significant awareness about it. If they were to do that, I'm quite positive that this is something that could garner much more national attention. I'm sure that Fox's nighttime lineup, for example, like with Tucker, Hannity, and Laura, all of them would be very happy to bring these candidates on and give them a platform to talk about tech censorship and how they plan to fight it in Congress. To his credit, Trump has been raising awareness about this issue. Very recently, he called out Facebook and Google, not so much YouTube. I'd like for him to include YouTube as well whenever he tweets about this and makes formal statements. but I haven't seen this trickle down yet to the midterm candidates. And honestly, I think this is an issue that conservatives across the country and in key battleground states are very eager to mobilize around. I really hope that the Trump team is planning something in late October in the run-up to November 6th to invoke this issue, because I think it'll really give Republicans a boost. The Senate will most likely be safe, but Democrats are expected to take back the House, and I really don't want us to hand the mic back over to Speaker Nancy. Joe Crowley was expected to give her some serious competition for Speaker of the House, but he obviously fell asleep and lost his primary race to Wonder Girl Ocasio-Cortez. So it'll probably be Nancy again if the Dems take back the House. So guys, make sure you vote, and make sure you also get your friends and family to come out and vote. To answer the second part of your question, Will, I haven't seen any evidence to indicate that this was a deliberate move by the tech companies to try and influence the midterms. My personal assessment is that InfoWars is not influential enough to impact congressional races on that level. I think there's just too many other factors that play a much bigger role in voter turnout and the eventual outcome. I think that these tech companies were just scheming and strategizing for some time now, trying to figure out how to get rid of InfoWars without any backlash, and they finally came to an agreement. They felt last month was a good time to do it, and they did it. All right, Monty asks, do you think Trump will win re-election in 2020? If not, who do you think is going to win? Monty, I do think that Trump will win. Incumbents do usually win re-election. Definitely, if he's up against Kamala Harris or Cory Booker, I think he can pick them apart pretty easily. If Hillary runs again, which I hope she does, she has no chance either. I think that Biden would probably give him the toughest competition out of all the mainstream kind of establishment candidates within the Democratic Party. But what would probably give him the biggest challenge is another celebrity opponent, someone like Oprah or Mark Cuban or even Michelle Obama. If any of those guys is able to win the Democratic nomination, I think it'll be a lot tougher, but we'll see what happens. Okay, Tommy says, hey Hound, love your channel and how you're able to turn things around. Which Fox News host would you most want to meet if given the opportunity? Good question, Tommy. I suspect many of you are thinking I would say Tucker, and I would definitely love to meet Tucker, but if I'm being honest, I'll probably have to go with Jesse Waters. Waters, just because he's closer to my age. He's the chill, funny guy on Fox, him and Gutfeld. So I think I will say Waters. He seems like someone I could just grab a beer with and talk about things in a very frank manner. You know, if Abby Huntsman hadn't actually left Fox for The View, I think I would have probably said Abby, but she is gone and she will be missed. All right, so we've gotten through all the substantive questions. We'll do just a few more of these kind of personal questions to finish things off. Colt says, hey Liberty Hound, big fan of your work. Wanted to know, what are your favorite TV shows? So I can't speak for my partners, but personally, I'm a huge TV buff. I used to watch a lot more shows before we got demonetized, and now I spend most of my free time working on the channel, which is fine. I really love doing it. But I am a huge Game of Thrones fan. I also recommend Dexter, Billions, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, The Wire. Those are all classics. And more recently, I really enjoyed Last Chance U on Netflix. I'm a big football fan, college and pro. Let me give you one more show that's current. I would go with Sherlock. Sherlock is pretty good, except that they take forever between seasons, unfortunately. All right, Colleen says, love the new look, Hound. Just curious, what do you do for a living? Okay, so I assume you're asking about myself and my co-founders. And so we all have different professions. There's 3 of us, including myself, and we have a lawyer, we have a scientist, and also a security specialist. So I guess we have some diverse areas of expertise represented here at The Hound. But to be honest, we all enjoy working on this channel way more than our day jobs, so hopefully someday soon we'll be able to just quit and do this full time. All right, last question. Jordan says, hey Hound, big fan of yours since the beginning. Really appreciate your analysis, but ever since you started talking, I noticed you sound an awful lot like this other channel I follow called Outdoors 55. Is that you? No, Jordan, we don't have any other channels, I promise. This is the only one. Alright, that is it for this video, guys. We hope it was a good opening Q&A. We are going to do another one next month, so if you'd like to submit questions, just join the pack on Patreon. The link is below. Your support is what enables us to keep going, so if we haven't earned it yet, just stick with us and hopefully we'll get there eventually. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter for updates and announcements. Alright, have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll see y'all in the next video.